roof sheeting, ColorBond custom orb roof sheeting to this timber frame clad building, and the insulation requirements that come with that. So in my fills, my preferred method in order to make this quite easy to read and look good is to use a gradient fill. So I'm going to use the AD gradient linear fill, and I'll make one of the fills a very light gray and one of the fills a medium gray. Now the idea is, again, rotated rectangular method, click, and then 16 millimeters in total. With the linear fill, we have to choose which direction it's going from. So I can then grab this, drag it to the bottom. And what we're seeing is it's representing from dark to light. So it's effectively giving me that shadow or that shading, which symbolizes the idea that we're looking at a curved metal surface. So we're cutting through, in this case, we're cutting through the bottom of the roof sheeting, and we're looking at it at the top in elevation. Now technically that should mean that we make the outline thinner, so we might make that thinner, and then we get a thick black pen, so I'll make it 6, and then we say that that's the part that we're cutting through, or vice versa, we put that at the top and we say that this is the one that we're cutting through, and we're seeing this in elevation. Now, it doesn't really make a difference. Sometimes I like doing it this way because it makes a little bit more sense for the insulation that we're going to have a look at in a second. Generally speaking, that is a little bit easier to draw. So we'll leave it like this for now. The next thing we need to do is to add the insulation. So we're going to use this same insulation profile again, and this is a little bit more beneficial this time, and we'll see why soon. So in order to grab this or understand it, if I grab again that edge and corner, that's to change its length and that's to change its angle. So I want to rotate it up to the left. I'll move it into place. Make it a bit shorter to begin with, just to make this easy to understand. And then I'll rotate it down into the angle that we need to match the roof, which is 22.5. I'm going to stretch the outside edge so it's as long as it needs to be. Stretch the bottom to bring that up so it's fitting within the roof batten. And then I can angle the back. So generally I'm going to angle it back a little bit short of the batten, and then going to the settings, and we'll add contours to it. Now the idea of this is, what is it? It's a roof blanket. If this isn't representing really well, I can again do this with a dashed line, and that's what I generally choose to do, because what I want to do is to represent that we've got the sarking that's going over the battens. It's the bottom of this blanket and then over the batten again. So I'm going to use a really thick pen, so I'll use pen 7. I'll make this dashed, so I'll make this a small dash, and then I'm just going to do this so it's one way round, or one panel. So I'm going to do the top of the batten, down to the bottom of the sarking, and then back to where I started. And if I want to represent this really well, again, I need to create that artificial spacing. So I'm going to elevate this up about 8 millimeters, and then I'll offset this face about 4 millimeters. And so what I'm seeing is that I'll get rid of that line, and I can turn off the contours now because I'm using a line to represent it. So we can see that that's giving me a slightly better representation of what I'm talking about. Now, to make this work even better, I'm going to stretch this up. So that's going all the way up to the top, and then stretch this back down. And that's now giving me a better representation of what I'm actually trying to show. And once I've drawn one of these, I can then multiply it. Move, drag multiple copies, and I'm going to go from batten to batten. Now to make this really easy, I'm just going to choose the bottom left corner rather than getting confused with the top corner. So that's representing pretty much as I want. I need to stretch that along just so it's again going back into white. And that's a pretty good representation of the roof insulation. Now, in addition to the roof insulation, we also need to have a ceiling insulation. So again, we'll copy this one. We'll rotate it around. Doesn't really matter in this case because I just want to stretch it. I'm not going to angle. The biggest difference with this ceiling insulation is it needs to be significantly thicker. So this was 90 mil thick to allow for a wall frame, to fit in a wall frame. I can have this being much, much thicker, 200 millimeters maybe, for a ceiling insulation. Generally, that's going to sit around about here, so on top of the roof battens. Now, it may effectively drape or fall in between the battens like that as well. Now, if I was to grab that corner, I can again angle this, which means I could also fit this all the way in here. And that's also maybe a nicer, better way of making that work. Does it chop off where the rafter is? Well, not really. So it could go all the way up here. We can see I can't model this perfectly because I can't create a polygonal edge. It's just either straight or it's angled. That's not bad. It's explaining the story. What am I trying to tell the builder? Insulate all the way to the corner. Don't leave big gaps, please. That's what I'm effectively trying to communicate. Now, we haven't added a Soffit lining. So how does this work? Well, it depends if we want to have a raked Soffit or a flat Soffit. Let's assume in this case we want a flat Soffit. In that case, I'm just copying this. Now, how does this work? I'm not going to be mitering this relationship. In this case, the ceiling joist will run past the rafter. Now, I'm probably not going to overlap it like it sees here, like it shows here. That's just not a really nice way of representing it. So I'll probably still chop this off, but then I'll use a line. So this can just be a number 1 line that's dashed to suggest that they actually run past. And then the point is that I'm fixing between these. So I'm screwing the ceiling, the Soffit joist, to the rafter. That Soffit joist can then either stop at the stud or go through the stud and be screwed off there as well. And again, I can show it the same sort of way. What am I doing with my wall lining? Is the wall lining extending up? It could, or it could stop at the bottom of my Soffit joist. Similarly, the batten doesn't need to go up. The batten can stop here. And similarly as before, I'm probably not going to show that running through, but I might do that with a dash line. Again, just to explain how it's going to fix. It's probably easiest just to run that through, and then I can screw that in terms of fixing. What's my Soffit lined with? Now, this is partly an aesthetic choice. It may be based on its ability to withstand bushfire requirements. So it could be plasterboard. I could have plasterboard just like I have in my ceiling, but probably an externally rated plasterboard. Or another way of saying that would be, we have plasterboard that's suitable for bathrooms. It's water resistant, so therefore I could be using water resistant plasterboard on the outside of my Soffit. I could use fiber cement. So again, the same type of fiber cement that I use as the tile underlay in a bathroom. Plasterboard is generally a nicer, smoother finish than than fiber cement, because we're able to set the joints. We could use a different type of board. My preferred method is a pre-finished fiber cement board, something like Cemental Barestone. Another option might be to make it out of timber. So it could be plywood or it could be tongue and groove, depending on the finish that I'm trying to go for. So there's a lot of different options. A lot of it's based on preference, so I'm not going to be too picky with what I'm showing here at the moment. I'm just going to change this to be FCC. Fiber cement compressed is what I mean by that. And then the only thing left to do would be to choose what type of fascia I'm using and what type of gutter I'm choosing. Now there's a lot of different options or shapes for gutters. So it could be a quad gutter or a half round or a slimline. We're not going to get into that right now. And I could have a timber fascia, or I could have a ColourBond or a custom type of fascia. I tend to not like the standardized fascias. I don't think that they're very attractive. And so I tend to use custom fascias anyway. But no matter what I'm doing, this roof sheeting is probably going to extend a little bit further into the gutter, and then the gutter is going to be sitting connected into that. Now I needed to choose whether I was going to have exposed rafters or concealed rafters, a raked soffit or a flat soffit. In this particular case, I've chosen a flat soffit, so that may impact on which type of gutter I choose. However, generally I'm going to choose a half round gutter, and that's because a half round gutter is the best way to get water through it. Another way of saying that is a half round gutter, because it's a semicircle, provides the least amount of resistance to the travel of water. And so that means that I can move a larger volume of water at a faster rate. And personally, I just like the aesthetic of a half round gutter and a external gutter bracket in order to be able to support it. So we can look at that in another tutorial.